What's going on? This is Travis from Trade with Travis. Hope everybody's doing very well on this Thursday morning, and today is the celebratory day. Obviously, we end up passing the Ftmo challenge. If you end up taking a look at the thumbnail and everything else like that, that's what we end up having in the description. What we're going to end up doing is going over certain trades that we end up taking, as well as being able to take a look at some of the trades that we can be able to take today for us being able to get in, do a little bit of live trading, and being able to see if there's something out there that we can be able to take advantage of. So with that being said, let's go ahead and go through the disclaimer, and then after that we'll go ahead and get started. I'm not a CTA, so I'm not going to tell you whether to buy or to sell. What I'm going to do is teach you education, and from the education you can be able to make your own informed decision. Now understand that trading involves risk. It involves risk of being able to make money, also involves risk of being able to lose money, so please keep that in mind. And understand that past performance is not indicative of future results, which means that if you end up making money yesterday, it's not promised that you can end up making money today. So with that being said, as I try to go through and get my screens correct, there we go. What I'm going to end up doing is switching off of this overall screen and being able to go right here. Block, what's going on? Hope everything's going well with you. And everybody else, thanks for being able to pop in. Want to be able to talk about this for us, what we end up doing for the challenge and everything else. Be able to give all of the overall numbers so y'all can be able to take a look at them. Obviously, give you an opportunity to be able to take a look at being able to purchase it yourself and being able to get the launch price when it comes down to that, and obviously everything else that goes along with that for us being able to get that started. So I'm going to go ahead and sign into the Ftmo account so I can be able to show y'all what we end up doing for the overall trading and everything else like that, and be able to kind of show everything from there. But profit target from the trial challenge is $2,500. What we end up doing, we end up making $2,750. Could have kept on going, but just like in any trial challenge that you end up doing, my biggest thing is that we need to pass the trial challenge. We don't necessarily need to obliterate it. We can be able to obliterate it once we end up getting into the funded portions of it. But we passed the minimum 5 days that we need to do. We end up trading in 7. Our max loss that we end up having was $652. Our worst loss that we end up having was $503. And then after that, our profit target ended up getting passed to $2,750 overall. You take a look at our overall numbers when it came down to how we end up doing for us. Our stats, we end up having 15 trades overall. Our risk versus reward was 1 to 1.3, which makes sense because our overall entries is 20 points and 20 points for its risk and reward. The overall expectancy, which means that the overall amount that you expected to be able to bring in was $183. Our win rate was 73%, and our profit factor was 1 to 2.84. Which is very good. Essentially what that means is for every $100 that you're risking, you're making $284 overall. And let's talk about the last couple trades that actually end up putting us into a position to where we actually end up passing. What's going on, Daryl? Hope everything's going well. So with that being said, essentially what ended up happening was that on the 13th, when FOMC news ended up coming out, we ended up getting in on US 30. I'm sorry, when CPI data came out, we ended up getting in at US 30. We ended up making 2,200 based off of that. The next trade that we ended up doing was basically US 30, ended up making 44. And then after that, the last one, which was US 100, ended up making 293 based off of that. I thought the last one was Euro United States ended up passing. No, I ended up saying it right. US 100 cash and ended up breaking off of that. So super excited about it. Obviously, that allows us to be able to get a lot more data that we can be able to use for what we're going to end up doing in January with everybody that's in the Discord group, everybody that is planning on being able to purchase the Boss EA and being able to start everything off in January. And if you're interested in being able to learn a little bit more about the Boss EA, it's on the MQL5 marketplace right now at this particular point. I'm going to place in a link to where you can be able to get a free demo and be able to try it out yourself. We are going through the launch phase right now at this particular point, meaning that for the first 10 people that actually end up purchasing it, you can be able to get it for $350. Once those 10 copies go, then after that, the price starts going up from there, and it starts being able to rise up. What was the best pair? I'm going to be honest. The best pair that we have wasn't even the one that we ended up trading, if we're being very honest. For its overall growth, over time, the best pair has been NAS 100, just based off of where the back testing was from January 3rd to where we are today. The one that's been giving us the most boom for our buck has been currently right now US 30. Currently right now it's up 23% over the course of the last 2 months. Done won 84% of its overall trade. Profit factor when it comes down to our live trading accounts, not our not our prop firm accounts, has been 3.302. Sharp ratio has been 0.46. And for its overall history, this is the history that we've had at this particular point. In November, we did 10%. Currently, right now, we're at 11% overall when it comes down to that. You take a look at what's happening with the one that I believe is the most stable and has been the most stable, has been Euro United States dollar. Euro United States dollar currently up 11%. And quite frankly, if we end up taking the prop firm challenge with this one, when it came down to this one, we would have passed as well. It has not lost a trade as of yet, and I'm knocking on wood. I don't know if y'all hear that, so I'm knocking on wood right now because it's done 112 in a row at this particular point. But it's doing very well. November, for the 3 days that they end up doing it, end up going and making 2% off of that. Currently, right now, it's up 8.99%. And the last time I checked, green is good when it comes down to that. But more importantly, obviously, for people that have been paying attention to what we have been talking about with the Boss EA, it's a quick scalping system. Essentially, once it gets into profit, it's locking you in, and then after that, kind of rolling from there. So our average duration of trades has been very fast. I've seen some that's been less than 2 seconds. I've seen some. The one that kind of is an anomaly is the one that was at 55 minutes where we end up winning $486. Typically, if we end up getting past that 10-minute mark, then it gets kind of hairy when it comes down to that. But this was happening during a low volume situation, but still, with that being said, we end up seeing that growth as well. So, like I end up saying, if you're interested in being able to learn a little bit more about that, you can be able to go into the link that I end up placing inside of this inside of the chat. Be able to get your free copy. Obviously, remember that we're going through our overall launch phase. So the first 10 people that end up purchasing it end up getting it for the lowest price that they'll ever be. From there, the price obviously will end up growing up, and then after that, we end up capping it off at some point in time as we go through. But with that being said, let's talk about what ended up happening yesterday and where we're at today when it comes down to overall trading opportunities. Obviously, Block, I know you want to end up talking about Bitcoin and everything else. How did you do for your trading yesterday? Because I don't think you was in the Twitch session last night. How did you end up doing overall? Let's see. I know you said your algos were killing it earlier this week. Going back to where we were, interest rate. The interest rate decision ended up being 4.5%. There was a raise of where it was from 4%. What they're talking about when it comes down to the interest rate projections, they're expecting that it's going to end up getting up to 5.1. And then from there, it's going to end up starting to be able to tail off from there. We end up having GDP from New Zealand actually end up being 6.4, which is actually good. Exports from Japan actually ended up being good yesterday, and then after that, unemployment change ended up being pretty good for Australia. A little bit later on today, what we're going to end up seeing is retail sales from the United States dollar. That's going to end up being at 9:30. We're going to end up seeing the interest rate decision from Swiss franc. It actually ended up coming out. They actually ended up staying at 1%, and then after that, we're going to end up having an interest rate decision at 8 o'clock for the pound. So we end up taking to see how that's going to end up affecting the market overall. That means that we probably should look at what's happening with the pound United States dollar and being able to take a look at what's happening with U.S. Swiss franc as a way of being able to understand how the market's going to end up going and being able to move from there. So heading over to Smart Trader. Smart Trader ended up making some changes, and I'm kind of interested in being able to see what those changes are. But while we end up getting everything else situated, we will talk about the big three. Big three, if you're not familiar, that is the United States dollar index, that is oil, that is gold. The reason why we end up taking a look at those is because that they have a strong correlation with the United States dollar pairs for obviously the United States dollar index. Oil has a strong correlation with the Canadian dollar, and gold has a strong correlation with the Australian dollar and the Japanese yen. Had a green day yesterday and a red day today. Well, they just got started, so obviously you'll be fine when it comes down to that. United States dollar index, where we at? Let's go ahead and erase some of these dots and kind of get that out the way. A few weeks ago, the market was inside of consolidation at 13,556 as a resistance and 13,251 as a support. Market ended up falling all the way down to 12,890 at this particular point, which was the natural support of this overall area right here. that we end up seeing. And currently right now, we're seeing that same thing overall when it comes down to that movement. From a daily perspective, we know that we're in a buy zone on a weekly. On the daily, we see that the market only made a 5-0 retracement, and currently right now it is in the push zone. So it does expect that the market is going to end up completing the extension at 12,730 at a certain point. We're in the no trade zone for the daily, and obviously we know that the weekly is showing that the market is moving to the downside, but the daily is showing that there's a little bit of a sign that it could be a little bit of a U-turn potentially end up happening again. Because of that, I'm going to stay away when it comes down to manually trading. I'm going to let the automation systems do their thing when it comes down to that. But overall, when it comes down to the United States as a pair, as a currency, I'm kind of in a situation of flux and trying to figure out if we're going to end up seeing a little bit of a retracement, or if we're going to end up seeing that this market will continue moving to the downside. So we had a breakout of consolidation, in which we end up talking about that before. End up having a big pop to the downside. That was at 7 p.m. Tuesday. That was CPI. We end up having the news that end up happening from that 7 to 9 p.m. Candlestick. Then after that, we have the retest that's happening right now. We are in the sell zone, but there's no counter trend line break at this particular point. So currently right now, I would not do anything when it comes down to this overall movement as of yet, before being able to make a true decision off of that one. Let's talk about oil real quick. Oil, we end up talking about if it broke the resistance, that it will look at being able to go up to the next resistance, but we did not take a trade because it didn't break this purple trend line, that long-term trend line as of yet to the upside. So currently right now, I am stagnant when it comes down to a trade. Let's talk about it from a weekly, and then after that, we'll get into a daily perspective. From a weekly perspective, the market is in the push zone to the downside. There's the extension that's expected to be hit at 64. At 64, 64 overall. And from there, if that does happen, that will actually end up breaking the A of the long-term upside move. So we're finding a little bit of a fight between if the market's going to end up going up at this particular point during the winter months like it typically should, or if we're going to end up seeing that prices are going to keep on getting pushed to the downside. Now, ultimately, I do think that the market is going to end up going up. From a weekly perspective, we're not in the buy zone, so it makes it kind of hard to be able to say, hey, we should get into a trade. From a daily perspective, we can see that we are in the buy zone, but we haven't broken out of this counter trend line break as of yet. So currently right now, we're still kind of fighting through to kind of see if this is a valuable position to be able to get in. It's breaking above that 77.11 position, which was the entry position where we got in last time to be able to ride it all the way up to 90 before it started to be able to reject and make that double top right here in this orange consolidation that we end up looking at. But currently right now, same deal. There's nothing to be able to do until this market breaks this counter trend line break. Once it breaks this counter trend line break, then we have an opportunity to be able to say, yeah, I'm interested in being able to take the trade. But for right now, is this the best situation to be able to get into? Maybe not. I'm gonna say no at this particular point. If I'm being very honest, you gotta adjust that trend line right there. All right, so I'm going to say no on oil, which means that I'm saying no to the Canadian dollar if it was an overall pair, and being able to make any trades off of that. Let's take a look at gold. Gold ended up popping above 1,800 the last time I ended up taking a look at it, and since then the market has rejected to the downside. Now, we end up talking about two potential trades that you could have got into, and I end up talking about how I end up taking profit off of the first move, this first initial movement to the upside, because I end up seeing a big spike to the downside, or starting to see a big spike to the downside. So half of my position I end up getting in the profit when this market ended up pushing all the way up to 1824. The other portion of it I got out of when the market went to break even. Since then, the market has fell back inside of consolidation, and because it is in consolidation, there's only a 33% chance of being able to make money off of this move at this particular point. Now, did you notice this consolidation ended up having a resistance right at these overall prices at the top? So really the new consolidation at this point, on which is showing that we had a triple top, new resistance is at 1809. So no trade should be taken until 1810 at this particular point. Now moving forward, from an actual support, we're still at that potential move, and we still have that trade in as a way of being able to see if it's going to end up breaking to the downside. But the closer that we get to Christmas, the less volume that we're going to end up getting, the less trading interest that a lot of people are going to end up having. which means that I think that we're probably going to stay in this consolidation until probably the new year, and being able to make a move from there. So at this particular point, I am flat on this one. There's no trade to be able to take, and I'm not interested in being able to make a move off of that one as of yet. Bitcoin, what's happening with the big dog? Let's see. Bitcoin, oh, it did hit our take profit. There we go. Nice. I stopped paying attention to that one. Yeah, I stopped paying attention to that one. Nice. Hold on, let me see. I didn't make sure that my account shows green on that one. There we go. Good. Good. I stopped paying attention to that one. Perfect. I've been so enamored with what's happening with what's been happening with the challenge and trying to get all that stuff situated that I forgot about that pair. All right. Perfect. So our thought process on Bitcoin was this. Let's go back to the daily and let's take a look at this first before we kind of jump into it. Market has had a long-term consolidation. Market had a long-term consolidation of with a resistance high of 25,000 down to 18,240. The market ended up showing a lot of consolidation back in October when we ended up making this trade to the downside where it fell all the way down to 15,000. No, what we ended up taking profit. I think it was like 16,500 or something like that. And then since from there, the market has basically built out two different consolidation areas. We end up taking a trade when the market ended up breaking above this overall resistance high right here at 17,200. From there, we ended up saying that we wanted to get out at 18,240. We knew that there was going to end up being a little bit of news that was going to end up helping us out. That includes CPI data and obviously what ended up happening yesterday with FOMC. Anytime that the United States dollar ends up having any type of downside move, it affects gold and obviously it affects Bitcoin because Bitcoin turns into one of those things that you might be interested in being able to jump into, especially if interest rates are low. Especially if interest rates are relatively low when it comes down to being able to get in. But our trade was basically trying to go with this overall process. Anytime that you end up having a breakout, then typically you end up having a retest. That's the overall crux of why we end up getting into this trade. So we had a breakout. Okay, I can tell that everything changed on this system. Hold on, I need to switch this up a little bit. Okay. So anytime that you end up having a breakout, typically you end up having a retest. And what ended up happening from here was that the market finally ended up retesting that 18,240 area. We were basically trading back up to that overall retest area. And then after that, from there, obviously the market has to make a decision from there. And currently right now, we see that the market ended up rejecting, which means that if everything keeps on remaining to be the same and retail sales actually end up being pretty good, we may end up seeing that this market try to break back inside of this overall support. And if it breaks the support, then it'll fall all the way down to 15,800. Now, if it falls down to 15,800, I'm probably going to end up being a big buyer when it comes down to that. The reason why I believe that is, once again, we're going into the months where typically Bitcoin starts to slow down. Typically, you end up seeing that Bitcoin really starts to be able to ramp back up going into going into late January, early February, all the way until April when the market really starts to be able to make that push outside of the Japanese New Year. But overall, if it does fall back down into this position, that's where I'm going to end up putting in a lot more of my trades for long-term movement at this particular point. And currently right now, I don't think that we have that as of yet, but that will be my idea of what I would like to be able to do if that does happen. So currently right now, I'm going to end up being flat, not going to end up doing anything off of this movement. We end up having a good trade off of that. I'm happy that it ended up making profit off of that. Sent that over to everybody in the Discord group. So if everybody ends up making money off of that, obviously everybody's happy. But at this particular point, that is what I think is going to end up happening. So I'm going to end up making this transparent, and we'll see if it does play out to be that way, and kind of go from there. US 30. US 30, what's happening with US 30? Now, keep in mind, because I have been doing the challenge and because I have been working with the Boss EA, I have not taken any manual trades off of US 30 and off of NAS. I forced myself not to look at the charts in school and everything else like that, because I wanted to be able to see if the system was going to end up doing its thing, and it has. And that may end up getting me to a point block to where I don't know. I think I might stop this manually trading. And I mean, obviously I trade during these sessions, but I don't know. I might this manually trade. It would be hard to do, but I don't know. We'll see. So hold on. Where's my Ftmo cloud? Where's my Ftmo cloud? Indicators. All right, so okay, that's not the right one. All right, I'll figure that back out. But for right now, this is what we'll work off of. All right, so from a daily perspective, we take a look at what's happening with the Ftmo cloud. Obviously, the market is bullish. What ended up happening was that they ended up pushing up to the essentially the market ended up pushing up to the point of control, the long-term point of control of where the market was from the beginning of the summer, where the market was in consolidation over here, and kind of went back to a position where now I think that the market's going to reject and kind of stay in that consolidation until the end of the year. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because that we can see that we're in the middle of a very large high volume node with a lot of volume of people trading inside of that area. And more importantly, we're basically at the highs of where the market was over the summertime. We're at the peak of where the market was in August before it really started falling down from interest rate decisions and everything else like that for its rate hikes. Now, we're in the middle of this consolidation, which means that we have a 33% chance of being able to win. The market ended up popping up to the upside and finishing that overall move to the top. And that puts us in a position to where we have no trade to be able to take on US 30 at this particular point. But once it does break out of this area, the next area where we're going to look at being able to make the trade up to will end up being up to 35,400 for that overall breakout. And if that does happen, then the next area will end up being back at the overall highs of where the market was in early January, early December at 36,700 at this particular point. So that is the moves in the future. Obviously, we're going to end up talking about those when we try to go big fish hunting. But currently right now, that is we're in the middle of consolidation. There's really no trade to be able to take at this particular point because obviously we're trying to be safe, and legitimately there's really no reason to be able to jump in December to try to say, hey, I want to be able to make a big splash on movements, because it's just not going to happen if we're just being very honest. So currently right now, we're in the middle of consolidation. As the market stays in consolidation, there will not be any trades. As soon as this market ends up breaking below, we have a trade that is set up for 33,300 with a take profit of 32,950. And if that happens, obviously we'll be ready to go. That order has been placed in legitimately almost a week ago. And we'll see what happens from that overall move once that ends up happening. That is a vortex trade. Obviously, if the market pops down, we can be able to see based off of the 1 hour. Let's see. Based off of the 1 hour, that will be where the market end up having is past resistance turn future support right in that area. So we'll be trying to take advantage of this pocket that is right here if that does happen from that particular point. So there we go. We'll stay away from that, at least for right now. But once that happens, then after that, we have an opportunity to be able to make a move. But we got a little bit of time for that to be able to happen overall. And once again, I'm not interested in jumping into a pair without waiting to see what's going to end up being the best opportunity for us. Now, with that being said, last pair we're going to talk about is NAS 100 and NAS 100. The NAS 100 is pretty much in the same position overall. We're in the middle of consolidation. We're in the middle of a high volume node. There's no trades to be able to take. There's a support trade that could be entered at 11,420 with a stop loss of 11,585 with a take profit of 11,120 in the near future. But at this particular point, that trade is not ready. I'm going to show this on the screen so everybody can be able to potentially be able to put that in the near future. So if that does happen, obviously we'll have a bigger window and a pocket that we can be able to work off of. Now, this is the largest pocket that we'll probably have going into the new year. So keep this in mind. That's not counting DAX, but keep in mind that move will end up being from right there to right there if that does happen. But currently, right now, I'm not holding my breath on it being able to happen in the next few days. It might end up happening. Might end up happening from that 20th to the 23rd. Obviously, for some reason, there's always like this Christmas rally, like right before Christmas, that because no people end up paying attention to it, and because there's light volume, you typically end up having like that shock move in one direction. But we'll see how that kind of plays out. I don't know if I'll be trading during that time either, but we end up going from there. Haha, yeah, I only took 2 manual trades this month so far. Hey, man, I don't want to take any manual trades for the rest of the year. I mean, not even for the rest of the year. I don't want to take any manual trades for 2023, if we're being honest. I will take trades here, but I want to build systems. I want to build systems that basically do all that work for me. I would rather be on a beach or looking at snow or doing something else like that, and I know that this thing is doing 80% of what I do, or in this case, when it comes down to the Boss EA, the Boss EA is outperforming me. It's just absolutely outperforming me. So it is what it is when it comes down to that. Last thing, let's take a look at the pound, because the pound just did a rate hike, which means that we should see a little bit of movement from pound United States dollar. Not what I expected, but let's take a look at this. I'm going to clear the chart real quick, and we'll start from the beginning. You know what this chart looks like? And I'm just talking in general. This looks like what happened to the Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar a couple years ago, when the market ended up having this big drop and fell all the way down to like 50 cents when it came down to the Australian dollar in general. Let me see if I can compare. I know we have a compare thing on here. There we go. So there we go. The Australian dollar back in 2020, when the market ended up making a drop from the pandemic, ended up having a similar type of drop that ended up happening. Obviously, it's been kind of mirroring what's been happening overall when it came down to this movement. Obviously, it's a little bit lower, but currently right now, what's happening with the pound is that it's starting to recover. And from this recovery standpoint, I can see that we're in the sell zone, which means that there could be a potential situation to where the market could start to drop. Not holding my breath on it, but that means that they're saying that the United States dollar might start to get a little bit stronger overall. And I'm not saying that it will. I'm saying that we probably got a little bit more room to the upside. We haven't even hit the sweet spot when it came down to this area. So even though it's in this, even though it's in the sell zone, I think that the market may consolidate a little bit. But we've had about 12 weeks of overall movement to the upside, and yeah, we had about 12 weeks to the overall upside. So it's been 3 months, which is kind of aligned with any type of retracement move. Until there's a counter trend line break, I'm still going to end up saying that the pound is probably going to end up getting a little bit stronger. That includes what's happening with the Eurozone overall, but I'm going to stay away from those right now at this particular point. All right. You like what I end up doing? Do me a favor. Please make sure that you end up liking this overall video. Please make sure that you end up sharing it. And please make sure that if you want to be able to join our Discord group, that you end up scanning that QR code that you end up seeing on the screen. Also, I'm going to end up placing in a QR code link that you can be able to work off of and be able to join our community as we go through and put everything else. Yes. Block. I'm telling. When I first got started trading, I started learning from that group, which is Market Traders Institute. I can say nothing but good things about Market Traders Institute. I ended up learning a lot of stuff. I mean, being up, each and every day for about 3 years straight, I was up at 2 a.m. in the morning, basically going through and learning and do everything else like that from that group. But that one tool is the only tool that I end up looking at overall. That's the only reason why I stay on Smart Trader, is because of the smart field. There's no other indicator in the market like it at this particular point. But everybody, if you're interested, there we go. That is a link for the overall Discord. Be able to pop in when it comes down to that. But like always, make sure that you end up playing your trade your plan. I see each and every one of y'all in the next video, which will actually end up being on Monday. And we end up going from there.